If you've ever stepped into an arcade, you might remember playing a game that brought the epic battles of Michael Bay's Transformers movies to life. That game was Transformers Human Alliance, and a lot of you probably have fond memories playing this game. I know I do. And a funny story is that when I was a kid, every time when I went to Dave & Buster's, which was roughly an hour away from my house, this was the game I thought about for the entire ride up there. And once I got there, I would literally drain my entire power card on this game. But the funny thing is, I don't ever think I defeated Megatron. Those memories are what make Transformers Human Alliance so special to me, and I'm sure many of you have similar stories. However, have you ever wondered how this incredible game came to be? Well, that's exactly what this video is all about. We're going to dive into the development history of Transformers Human Alliance, explore its story, uncover what was left on the cutting room floor, and at the very end, I'll show you how you can play the game from the comfort of your very own home. So without further ado, let's get to it.
Decepticons recruiting.
Decepticons?
You are their target.
Alright, so when it comes to the development history of Transformers Human Alliance, the game was developed by Sega's Chinese studio Sega of China, who only developed 4 games prior to Human Alliance, those being a beat-em-up game called Asian Dynamite, a minigame game called Loving Dead's The House of the Dead EX, a light gun game called Sega Golden Gun, and a racing game called KO Drive, which ultimately got cancelled. This made Transformers Human Alliance the 5th game developed by Sega's Chinese studio, and the 3rd Transformers arcade game made by Sega. If you're wondering what the other 2 arcade games were, they were based on the Transformers animated cartoon, and were released exclusively in Japan by Sega of Japan on July 23, 2010. One of them was Transformers Animated The Chase, a racing game where 1 or 2 players could take the wheel of their favorite character, and Transformers Animated The Shooting, a rail shooter game allowing 1 or 2 players to control their favorite character. Now, although we don't know how well the Transformers animated games did in Japan, the decision by Hasbro and Takara Tomy to license the Transformers IP to Sega again suggests that those games performed well enough to justify Sega's involvement in developing a brand new arcade game for the Transformers franchise. While the exact start date of production for Human Alliance is unknown, largely in part due to it being developed in China, we do know that Sega Corporation filed a trademark for the name Human Alliance on October 9, 2012. This filing indicates that development on the game was likely well underway by that time, since trademark filings are typically made once a project has reached a certain level of progress. Now, despite development for this game starting sometime in 2012, Human Alliance remained largely unknown to fans until May 9, 2013, when ArcadeHeroes.com reported on an advertisement put out by Sega, where Sega announced that a limited-time public beta for the game was happening from May 10th to 12th at the Daymay Shopping Center in Shanghai, inviting participants to join the Autobots in an epic battle to save Earth. Based on this description, Arcade Heroes deduced that the game was likely a light gun game where players could fight alongside the Autobots as humans in order to protect the planet. And this theory from Arcade Heroes was proven to be true when the teaser trailer for the game dropped on July 12, 2013. To maintain momentum and excitement for the game, Sega got the fans involved. You see, on September 30, 2013, Sega Amusements revealed on their official Facebook page that fans could pick the next trailer for the game. They presented 2 options, each based on an area in the game. One of the areas was England, and fans could vote for this trailer by liking the Facebook post. The other area was Africa, and the fans could vote for this trailer by sharing the post. In the end, England won, and on October 10, 2013, fans were treated to a thrilling trailer featuring Sideswipe duking it out with Soundwave. Just over a month later, on November 15, 2013, Sega released a full trailer for the game, showcasing several beloved characters that appeared throughout Michael Bay's Transformers trilogy. With the release of the full trailer, it became clear that the game was likely completed and was ready to be showcased, and just 3 days later, on November 18th, Sega presented the game at the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions Expo in Orlando, Florida. At their booth, they had an awesome banner with the game's logo, and a giant Transformers Prime Optimus Prime statue to attract attendees to try out the game. But this wasn't the only piece of marketing that the Sega team did. You see, a short walk away from the convention there was a Dave & Buster's, and when you entered the place, the first thing you saw was this massive staircase with the game's logo, telling gamers that they could play it right at Dave & Buster's. Now, during the expo, attendees had the opportunity to play two versions of the game. Although both versions offered identical gameplay, they differed in their cabinets. The smaller of the two was the 42-inch Deluxe. This cabinet featured a 42-inch monitor, light gun shaped like Bumblebee's cannon, and a cool honeycomb pattern on the sides with an image of Bumblebee. The machine was covered with Transformers-themed LED lights, my favorite of the bunch being Bumblebee's rear Camaro lights. At the top of the cabinet was a billboard featuring Bumblebee. However, interestingly enough, there was another version of this cabinet that came with a billboard that had Optimus Prime next to Bumblebee. As for the larger cabinet, it was called the 55-inch Theater. This version carried almost everything from the 42-inch Deluxe, but with a few notable upgrades. The 42-inch monitor was replaced with a larger 55-inch monitor, and a whole theater setup was built around the game, allowing players to sit down and be fully immersed in the experience. The standout feature of this cabinet was the front, where Bumblebee was prominently displayed. His eyes lit up as well as the front Camaro lights on his chest. Any kid would jump for joy seeing this thing. I know I sure did. Lastly, the honeycomb pattern would return. However, Optimus would be featured on the left side, while Bumblebee was on the right. Now, something interesting about this cabinet was that in an advertisement promoting their booth, Sega, for some reason, had an earlier version of the 55-inch theater on it. The main differences I noticed were these translucent pieces and these awesome racing stripes. While I think the final version looks better overall, I do wish it would have gotten these stripes. Following the expo, new information about the game remained scarce until roughly around December 21st, 2013. When Sega announced that the game would be available for purchase. To meet the expected high demand, Sega stated that they had begun production in both the United States and the United Kingdom in order to ensure a ready supply for their markets. By the start of June 2014, Human Alliance had appeared in numerous arcades worldwide. The earliest mention of its arrival in the United States that I could find was a Facebook post from an arcade based in Singapore called Time Zone. Their post indicated that the game was ready to be played, thus making January 10th, 2014 as the earliest known date of Human Alliance's presence in the United States. Now, the Deluxe and Theater wouldn't be the only versions of the game to be released, since Sega would go on to create what I believe is the coolest version of the game that exists. That would be Transformers Human Alliance Special. This version was released exclusively in Japan on July 18th, 2015, and could only be played at any of Sega's Joypalist arcades. Since Human Alliance could be played with up to 2 players, Sega took the design of their old Rotate 360 and created a brand new version of it just for Human Alliance called the Rotate 360Z. This new platform featured 2 seats and a modernized gyro motion system, allowing it to rotate riders a full 360 degrees based on the on-screen action. The controls for this cabinet were different from the Deluxe and Theater. Instead of the light guns and buttons, now all the controls were housed in the restraints players were strapped into. Another thing that was cool about this version is that players waiting in line could watch a tutorial for the game on the TV screens overhead. Now, though we never got the Transformers Human Alliance Special released in the United States, there was one more version of the game that we did get. That, of course, would be the 80-inch Super Deluxe. This version combined the best features of the Deluxe and Theater into one impressive cabinet. Releasing on November 12, 2015, it was the final cabinet for the game that we got, and it left a lasting impression due to how massive it was. And unlike the previous cabinets, the Super Deluxe featured a massive 80-inch monitor and a subwoofer enhanced surround sound system, making it an unforgettable experience for players. Speaking of the player's experience, let's dive right into the gameplay mechanics, shall we? You see, the Deluxe, Theater, and Super Deluxe cabinets for Transformers Human Alliance were powered by Sega's Ring Edge 2, which is an arcade board released as part of the Ring series, and was a successor to Sega's Ring Edge. The Ring Edge 2 ran on Windows Embedded Standard 2009, and interestingly enough, Transformers Human Alliance was the first Ring Edge 2 game to be released internationally. Thanks to the Ring Edge 2, Transformers Human Alliance plays very smoothly, and features stunning visuals, which significantly enhances the enjoyment of its engaging controls centered around the mounted gun turrets. Unlike some other light gun shooters, you don't run out of ammo, allowing for continuous fire with each trigger pull. On the screen, you and your teammate can see your respective health bars in the bottom of your corresponding corner, and the color targeting cursor that moves with the turret to show you where you're aiming. Hitting targets continuously will increase your combo ranking, and you can chain higher combos by also hitting destructible items, such as barrels and crates. If you're playing a 2-player game, you can trigger Alliance Fire by crossing your targeting cursors. This will cause your Autobot companion to add their firepower to yours. Now, during the game, certain enemies will appear with a green and red outline around them, which indicates an incoming unavoidable attack. The enemy must be defeated before a certain amount of time passes, or else you'll receive damage. This is made harder when there are groups of enemies on the screen, forcing you to judge which enemies to take out first. When playing the game, you will also come across a blue-tinted opponent. This blue outline indicates that they are carrying an Energon Cube. Killing this enemy will add their Energon to your Autobot companion, and also trigger Alliance Fire, even if it is only a 1-player game. During the game, you will find yourself partaking in co-op battles that will occur between you and one or more opponents. You assist your Autobot companion by shooting out the targeted weak points on their opponent. If you succeed, your Autobot will be victorious, but if you fail, they will be beaten back and you will take damage. At the end of these boss battles, which normally last at least 3 rounds, you will be graded on how fast you took out the targets. There are also quick time events as well, where you have to avoid incoming obstacles or attacks, either by precise timing with the start button or moving the gun turret in the correct direction when prompted. Boss battles also occur at the end of each stage. In these scenarios, certain weak points are highlighted on the boss. If all the points aren't hit within a given time, you will take some damage. These circled points also appear to indicate incoming attacks, which you will need to destroy or else you'll take some damage. Once the boss's health bar has been depleted, the battle ends and you move on to the next stage. At the end of each stage, you're given a grade based on your overall performance, the lowest being E and the highest being S. A friendship meter will be displayed showing how well you work together with your Autobot companion in the form of a percentage. The higher the percentage, the more your health gauge refills. And with that said, that concludes the gameplay mechanics for the game. So now let's dive right into the game's story. Transformers Human Alliance is set during the events between Transformers Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon. It starts you off on Stage 1, which is located somewhere in East America. In this stage, we see Nest Agent Vanessa escorting a civilian named Jake outside of the city inside of Bumblebee. Jake is carrying a device with him. We don't know how he got it, but interestingly enough, the device is modeled after an unused concept of the fuel cell from Dark of the Moon. Jake calls Sam Witwicky on his cell phone, asking him if he really needs to deliver the device with Vanessa. However, before Sam can respond, 2 Decepticons show up behind Bumblebee and send out an EMP, terminating Jake's phone call with Sam. Bumblebee mentions that the cons are approaching and arms the humans with guns to help them fight back. And fun fact, these Decepticon soldiers are based off of the Decepticon protoforms that we saw in Revenge of the Fallen. After Jake and Vanessa take the initial 2 cons out, several more cons appear from every possible direction. As the humans fight them off, they regroup with Optimus Prime and Nest. But even with their backup, the 3 are cornered by Decepticon soldiers under the command of Starscream. And fun fact, these soldiers are based off of the 4-eyed protoforms that we see in Dark of the Moon. Bumblebee, Vanessa, and Jake fight these protoforms off, but when they attempt to flee, they are ambushed by Starscream. Bumblebee attempts to drive Jake and Vanessa to safety, but is subsequently ambushed by small Decepticon soldiers. And interestingly enough, their designs are based off of RC's design from Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. As the team attempts to flee, Starscream flies overhead and forces them off the road by throwing a tanker truck at them. After landing outside of a nearby factory, Starscream once again corners them and attacks. After saving Bumblebee from Starscream's grasp, the humans are picked up by Starscream. However, they blast their way free, but in doing so, Jake drops the device, which is swiftly stolen by Laserbeak. They continue to fight off Starscream's attacks until Optimus Prime shows up, plowing into the scheming Decepticon and ending the fight. Though Optimus threatens him, Starscream has already won, and he departs with the device. After this level ends, the player moves on to Stage 2, where they can choose between 2 levels. Stage 2A is set in England's central city, and Stage 2B is set in North Africa. However, players can only pick one of these options during their playthrough, because the game takes them directly to Stage 3 afterward. This means you'll need to play the game twice to experience all the levels. So, starting off with the story that takes place in 2A, when investigating the epicenter of an earthquake in England's central city, Nest is ambushed by Decepticon soldiers under the command of Soundwave. Nest requests Autobot backup, and Vanessa and Jake, now accompanied by Sideswipe, respond to the team's request. They take on numerous Decepticon soldiers and even fight off some Ravage clones. However, the enemy's numbers soon prove to be too much to handle, and Sideswipe is forced into a tunnel, with Soundwave himself giving chase. And something interesting about Soundwave here is that he transforms into an SUV, unlike in the film where he transforms into a Mercedes-Benz SLS AMG. This change was likely due to licensing issues. However, in his robot mode, Soundwave still features vehicle parts for the SLS AMG, with the only difference being that the Mercedes logo on his chest has been conveniently replaced with a Decepticon logo. Now, during the tunnel chase, Soundwave is temporarily defeated by the humans, and Sideswipe is able to climb out of the tunnel right when more Decepticons show up. Soundwave catches up to our heroes as they reach a bridge, forcing Sideswipe to take on both him and Laserbeak. With some human assistance, Sideswipe is victorious, and the group finish crossing the bridge. However, the battle isn't over yet, since they're attacked by several Laserbeak drones and various Decepticon soldiers. Ness headquarters radios in to confirm the presence of another Decepticon, at which point Brawl rolls into view and fires a barrage of missiles. Sideswipe manages to survive the assault, and Brawl transforms. Now, something interesting that I want to note here is that in the game Brawl is called Brawler. However, this was highly likely a translation error. Now, during the Brawl boss battle, the team takes out his missile turrets one at a time, just like how Jazz did in the Transformers 2007 film. However, Brawl simply tosses Sideswipe aside, now forcing his fury on Vanessa and Jake. Eventually, the hefty Decepticon is brought down by the humans and Sideswipe. Optimus Prime appears, demanding to know if the Decepticons are behind the earthquake. But before Brawl can say anything, he succumbs to his injuries. Now moving on to the story that takes place in 2B, Vanessa and Jake accompany Optimus Prime to a North African desert, following the source of the earthquakes. When they arrive, the town appears to be deserted, until they realize they have walked directly into an ambush. Despite Optimus's best efforts, the humans have to fend off several hordes of lens meter drones by themselves before Optimus helps them make their getaway over the town's rooftop. When they reach the outskirts of the town, the ground rips up before them, and they are confronted by Shockwave. Optimus transforms and flees, taking the humans into the desert while being pursued by Shockwave and an army of Scorponok drones. Before they become overwhelmed, Sideswipe shows up, but Shockwave eventually gets ahead of Prime, forcing him into a 1v1. With the help of the humans, Optimus prevails, but Shockwave escapes before he can be finished off. Prime and the humans are once again forced to flee from the Scorponok drones, and things get 10 times worse when the Scorponok King arrives. The humans destroy his weapon systems and literally disarm him. Optimus Prime finishes the job by impaling the Scorponok King in the head with its own tail. Sideswipe catches up to the group just as they recover the device, which is revealed to be the cause of the global earthquakes, and Optimus realizes that Megatron has led them on a wild goose chase. From here, the player moves on to Stage 3, and here the Decepticons have launched a massive assault on a West Coast city in the United States. A squadron of Nest fighter jets accompany Optimus, Bumblebee, and their human companions. Vanessa is shocked at the carnage, but Jake seems unusually confident, right up until parts start falling off their stolen Decepticon fighter. Optimus splits from the group as Bumblebee flies the humans through the city, taking out several orbital assault carriers sent to intercept them. Their squadron is suddenly attacked by Skywarp, forcing them deeper into the city. Optimus eventually rejoins them, and despite Skywarp's impressive teleportation skills, he's no match for Optimus and the humans, and Optimus ends Skywarp's life by punching a hole through his chest. However, when more Decepticon fighters show up, Optimus tells Bumblebee and the humans that he'll cover their rear. Bumblebee takes point into the depths of the city, and they soon catch up with a Decepticon mothership. Here, the group is confronted by Megatron, and Prime demands answers for everything that's been going on. But Megatron is more interested in the humans and attacks Bumblebee's ship. Optimus and Megatron start to duke it out as the warship launches missile after missile at Bumblebee's fighter. Jake spots an entrance into the mothership, and the team blast their way inside for cover. After clearing out waves of soldiers, Vanessa takes note of the Energon nodes, and they promptly go to work destroying them in order to cripple the ship. But before they can take out the last one, Starscream arrives and almost kills the humans before being blasted back into the node. The ship explodes, but Jake's celebration is cut short by an abrupt transmission from Optimus Prime, asking them to converge on his and Megatron's position. From here, the player moves on to Stage 4, which is the final stage, and here Bumblebee and his human companions crash land somewhere in the Canadian frontier. Having followed Optimus's signal, the group is surprised to find Megatron instead of Optimus Prime. Megatron gloats that Optimus is already dead, and he then directs their attention to a nearby Energon tower, which looks a lot like the Star Harvester from Revenge of the Fallen. He boasts that his power will win him not only Earth, but Cybertron as well. Megatron then gives chase both in the air and on the ground. And with the Energon tower interfering with Bumblebee's capabilities, it is up to the humans to fend off the Decepticon leader as best as they can. Things are made even more complicated when Megatron summons the other Decepticons to attack. Brought to a halt, Megatron simply tosses Bumblebee aside and prepares to terminate the humans. Suddenly, he is blasted away, and Megatron is shocked to see that it's a very much alive Optimus, who vows to end Megatron's evil plan. The two clash once again, and Jake and Vanessa add their firepower to the mix, and together, the three of them bring Megatron to his knees and defeat him. Before they can finish off Megatron, another earthquake shakes the whole area. Vanessa notes that the Energon Tower has gone out of control, with Bumblebee adding that its power will destroy the Earth. Sideswipe and a squadron of Nest soldiers arrive, and Optimus orders everyone to destroy the tower before it's too late. After the tower is deactivated, Jake notices that Megatron has made his escape, and Optimus notes in a message that the battle with the Decepticons will continue, and that as long as they are on Earth, no harm will come to the human race. And just like that, that was the story of Transformers Human Alliance. I love how it incorporated several references and characters from the original trilogy, so in a way the game is a tribute to those three films. Now from here I would like to discuss what was left on the cutting room floor, since there are several weird and interesting things that didn't make it into the game. Starting off with the weird, in the game's files there were 4 images of cartoon characters that don't appear anywhere in the game. If anyone knows who these characters are and where they're from, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Moving on to the interesting, there were 4 test tracks. The first one was the Game Over theme from Sega Golden Gun, which as we know is another Sega light gun game made by Sega of China. The second track was Battle by Steve Jablonsky from Transformers Dark of the Moon, and this is the track that plays when the Autobots are fighting the Dreads. The third track was strangely enough Get Through This by Art of Dying, and this song was one of the songs that was featured in the credits for Transformers Dark of the Moon. And lastly, the fourth track was The Shard by Steve Jablonsky from Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, and this is the track that plays when the kitchen bots come to life. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see that they use some tracks from the films as test tracks, and I assume if you're tech savvy enough, you might be able to mod the game in order to have these tracks play, but that's just a theory. As for some other stuff that was left on the cutting room floor, in the game's files there is a screenshot of an old version of the Continue screen, which offers the player upgraded weapons similar to Sega Golden Gun. As we know, this never made it into the game, so it's cool to see that at one point, more guns would have been available to us. There was also another screenshot that was found in the game's files of what appears to be a laboratory level, and here we can see the crosshairs of both Player 1 and Player 2. As you guys can see, the textures here look completely different to what we got in the final game. As for what this level was supposed to be and why it was cut is unfortunately unknown to us. Lastly, in the game's files there are 3 textures from a coming soon teaser, which was likely a leftover from when Sega of China was having their beta for the game. Interestingly enough, Chinese and Japanese versions of these textures are also in the game's files. And with that said, that's everything that was left on the cutting room floor. Now if you made it this far into the video, you likely want to learn how to play Transformers Human Alliance for yourself, without having to travel all the way to the arcade. And well, in order to do this, we're going to need to harness the power of emulation. You see, in order to play the game on your computer, you are going to need to download 3 things. The first thing is TechnoParrot, which is the emulator that will allow us to play the game. This will be the first link in the description below. Make sure you download the TechnoParrot bootstrapper and not the legacy release. The next thing we need to do is to download the physical game files for Transformers Human Alliance. This can be found using the second link in the description below. On this page, scroll down to the download section and make sure you click the red Mega Download button. This will take you to a Mega Download page. Now something that I would like to point out is that your antivirus may flag the Transformers_final.7z file. If this happens, you will need to either allow the download through your antivirus or temporarily disable it. Now the last and final thing we need to do is to download the NT Core 4GB patch. This can be found using the third link in the description below. Now the reason why we need this is because on stage 3 when Megatron shows up, the game tends to crash due to a lack of memory. So if we don't want Megatron crashing our game, we're going to need to download this patch. Alright, so once everything has downloaded, drag tpbootstrapper.zip and Transformers_final.7z to your desktop. Now, in order for us to get everything up and running, we're going to need to create a new folder, since this is where our TechnoParrot files will go. I will call it TechnoParrot for the sake of this tutorial. The next thing we need to do is to get TechnoParrot up and running, so go and extract the contents of the tpbootstrapper.zip to your desktop. Once it completes, this window should open up. From here, go ahead and run the tpbootstrapper.exe. Now this window may pop up when running this file, but go ahead and click More Info, and then click Run Anyway. From here, you will likely get a user account control prompt. Unfortunately, OBS did not capture mine properly, so here's a photo of it. On this page, click Yes, and the TechnoParrot downloader should open up. After it is done downloading the necessary files, click Browse, and then select the new folder that we created. After that, click Full Install and wait for it to finish. Once it's done, a Download Complete page should open up. Click OK, and then click OK on this information window, asking us to set up the emulation settings. After doing that, a new information window should open up, asking us if we want to add a game. Click yes, and after doing so, the TechnoParrot UI should open up. And here is where we get to set up Transformers Human Alliance. Go grab onto the scroll bar and scroll all the way down until you see Transformers Human Alliance. Click on it and then click Add Game. Once you're on this page, click on Game Settings, and here a Settings UI will appear. Now the first thing we need to do in order to play Human Alliance is to link the game's executable file to TechnoParrot. In order to do this, we need to extract the transformers_final.7z file. Now, this will likely take some time since the file is nearly 5 GB. However, once it's done finally being extracted, go back to the TechnoParrot UI window. Now, in order to link Human Alliance's executable file to TechnoParrot, we need to find the file named tf_gun_r_ring_dumped.exe. In order to find it, click on this line right here. Then click on the file called transformers_final. Then click the folder called exe, and then select this executable file. And just like that, Transformers Human Alliance is now linked to TechnoParrot. However, we cannot play it just yet, since we need to set up a few settings. First, make sure that Hide Cursor is selected. This will hide the mouse when playing the game. Next, be sure to adjust your sensitivity. This of course will be different for everyone, but I think that 15 works quite well. Some other settings you should have selected is Free Play. Having this option enabled is important, since you'll be able to respawn if you get killed. Another thing you can do is play your game in windowed or full screen mode. However, for the sake of this tutorial, I will keep windowed selected. Now, the last and most important thing that we need to select is the input API. Make sure it's on raw input, since this will allow us to control the gun with the mouse. From here, save your settings and make your way to the controller setup. Now, the way I will be setting up my controls is for one player using keyboard and mouse. Now, it is possible to set up the game with 2 players and even use different types of controllers. However, I don't really know how to do that, so I'm just going to be sticking with 1 player. With that said, the first thing you want to do is to set up your light gun. Now, something that I want to point out is that if you decide to use player 1, you will be playing as Vanessa and your gun will be on the left side of the screen. However, if you set up player 2, you will be playing as Jake and your gun will be on the right side of the screen. So after deciding what character you want to play, select your mouse of choice. Now the next thing we want to set up is the start button. This button is used to start the game and is also the button you press to complete the quick time events. I will select the spacebar for this option. Next, you want to set up the gun triggers, and for this I will use the left and right click buttons. After these controls are chosen, you're all done with setting up the game in TechnoParrot. So save what you have and launch the game to make sure everything works. Now when you click launch a game, you will likely get this command prompt window. After it says success have fun, the game should open up. And as you can see on my end, everything is working as intended. Be sure to play around with your controls to make sure everything is set up properly. Once you're confident that everything is good to go, it's time to stop Megatron from crashing our game. Now the first thing you want to do is to exit out of the game by pressing escape on your keyboard. Then exit out of TechnoParrot. Now go to your downloads folder and drag the 4GB_patch zip file to your desktop. Double click it to open it, and then run the 4GB_patch.exe file. Click yes on the user account control prompt, and from here it should open a file explorer window. On here, click desktop and then open the file called transformers_final. Then click the folder called exe, and then select this executable file. And just like that, we stopped Megatron from crashing our game. Now something you might be wondering is how we open Human Alliance back up after it's closed. And well, it's pretty simple. First, go to the folder where you installed your TechnoParrot files and scroll all the way down to the file named TechnoParrot UI. If you double click it, it should take you to the Transformers Human Alliance page. Now the very last thing you want to do is to clean up your desktop, since you will no longer need the majority of the files we downloaded. All the zip files can be sent straight to the recycle bin, and the TP Bootstrapper file can be recycled as well. And just like that, you successfully installed Transformers Human Alliance. Feel free to let me know what you guys think of the game, and if you want a challenge, try to beat the game without getting damaged. I've tried and failed numerous times, so I wish you the best of luck.